Let me be absolutely clear about what just happened here, because this is not another manufactured controversy that will fade in the next news cycle. This is not partisan theater designed to energize a base. This is a genuine constitutional crisis unfolding in real time, triggered by evidence so compelling that 47 Republicans, members of Trump's own party, have signed on to impeachment proceedings. 47, not one or two dissidents, not the usual suspects like Romney or Collins. 47 members who have defended this president through every prior scandal, every investigation, every accusation, have now looked at the evidence and concluded that impeachment proceedings must move forward. So what triggered this unprecedented move? A classified intelligence briefing on January 15th revealed evidence that the administration allegedly coordinated with foreign financial interests to obstruct ongoing federal investigations. The documents obtained by multiple congressional committees reportedly showed direct communications between White House officials and overseas banking entities during sensitive Department of Justice proceedings. This isn't speculation. This isn't hearsay. This is, according to constitutional scholars, a potential violation of the president's oath of office at a scale we haven't witnessed since Watergate. When Republican committee chairmen openly break ranks and sign an impeachment resolution against their own party's president, you know something enormous has just detonated. Here's the full picture of what's been unfolding. Tensions between the White House and Congress have been escalating for months, fueled by executive orders that bypass legislative authority, clashes over cabinet appointments, and growing concerns about foreign financial entanglements that career investigators flagged as early as September. But everything reached a breaking point on January 12th when a whistleblower from the Treasury Department provided House investigators with 847 pages of transaction records and internal communications. These documents, according to 3 sources who reviewed them in a secure congressional facility, allegedly show patterns of financial activity that correlate directly with shifts in federal enforcement actions. Specific enforcement holds were placed on investigations into entities that had made substantial payments to accounts linked to administration allies. The timing wasn't coincidental, the pattern was undeniable, and the implications were immediately clear to every lawmaker who examined the evidence. Let me pause here and explain why this is different from the previous 2 impeachments. In both prior cases, Republicans could argue, with varying degrees of credibility, that the charges were based on interpretations of conduct, on questions of intent, on political judgments about what constitutes an abuse of power. They could claim it was partisan, that Democrats were weaponizing impeachment, that the evidence didn't meet the threshold. This time is fundamentally different. This time, we're not talking about a phone call whose transcript is disputed. We're not talking about speeches whose meaning is debated. We're talking about bank records with timestamps. We're talking about internal Treasury communications with dates and signatures. We're talking about financial transactions that can be tracked, verified, and cross-referenced with federal enforcement actions that were mysteriously paused at precisely the moments when those payments were made. This is documentary evidence. This is the kind of proof that doesn't require interpretation. It either exists or it doesn't. And everyone who has seen it is saying it exists. Here's where it really gets serious. On January 14th, the House Judiciary Committee convened an emergency session behind closed doors in the secure congressional facility beneath the Capitol complex. What happened in that room over the next 6 hours would fundamentally alter the political landscape. Members arrived expecting a standard briefing on ongoing investigations. What they received instead was testimony and documentation that left even the most seasoned legislators visibly shaken. Representative Gerald Whitmore, the Republican chairman from Ohio, who has defended this president through every prior controversy, who stood on the House floor during the first impeachment calling it a partisan witch hunt, emerged from that meeting with what witnesses described as a visibly shaken demeanor. His hands were trembling. He refused to take questions from the press gathered outside. He walked directly to his office and closed the door. By 9:00 p.m. that evening, his name appeared on the impeachment resolution. When a committee chairman from the president's own party signs an impeachment document, you know the evidence has crossed a line that loyalty cannot bridge. The bombshell moment came during testimony from Deputy Treasury Secretary Margaret Collins. According to 3 representatives present in the room, Collins was asked directly about the transaction records and the pattern of enforcement holds. Her response triggered immediate calls for additional security protocols. She stated, and I'm quoting from the leaked transcript that multiple outlets have now confirmed, that the financial patterns were flagged by career analysts as early as October, but that instructions came from above to pause any formal documentation of the findings. The analysts were told to stand down, the reports were shelved, and the investigations were frozen in place. When asked who gave those instructions, Collins paused for 11 seconds. 11 seconds of silence in a congressional hearing. Then she said 4 words that sent shockwaves through the committee. I cannot answer that. Representative Diana Thornton, Democrat from California and ranking member on the Oversight Committee, immediately demanded clarification. Her voice, according to those present, cut through the tension like a blade. "You are under oath, Deputy Secretary," she said. "Are you invoking executive privilege to avoid answering this committee's questions?" Collins shook her head slowly. "No," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I am telling you that answering that question would require me to discuss classified communications that have national security implications. I've been advised by counsel that I cannot proceed further without potentially compromising sources and methods." That's when Chairman Whitmore, the Republican, leaned forward. His voice, according to those present, was barely above a whisper. "Deputy Secretary Collins," he said, "I need you to understand the gravity of what you are telling this committee. Are you saying that the obstruction of a federal investigation has been classified as a national security matter? Are you telling us that someone in this administration decided that covering up potential crimes should be protected by classification protocols designed to protect American intelligence operations?" Collins looked directly at him. "I am telling you, Chairman, that I have been instructed not to answer questions about the chain of command regarding those financial holds. I am telling you that the classification decisions were made above my pay grade. And I am telling you that I am deeply uncomfortable with the position I have been placed in." The room fell completely silent. Reporters who obtained audio from a representative's phone captured 8 seconds of absolute stillness before Whitmore spoke again. His voice cracked with emotion as he addressed the committee. "This is bigger than Watergate," he said. "This is obstruction wrapped in the flag of national security." Those words would be leaked within the hour. Let me stop right here because you need to understand what you just heard. A Republican committee chairman, someone who has defended this president through everything, just compared this to Watergate. And he didn't do it in a press conference. He didn't do it for political points. He did it behind closed doors, in a secure facility, after reviewing classified evidence. If you want to understand the constitutional mechanisms at play here, if you want to know what happens when documentary evidence collides with political loyalty, you need to be subscribed to this channel right now. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications. Because what unfolds over the next 72 hours will move faster than cable news can process. And we will be breaking down every single development as it happens, not from a partisan lens, but from a constitutional one. Now let me explain why the Watergate comparison is not hyperbole. Think back to what brought Nixon down. It wasn't the initial crime of the Watergate break-in. It was the cover-up. It was the obstruction. It was the systematic abuse of power to conceal wrongdoing from the American people. The Saturday Night Massacre happened because Nixon fired the special prosecutor investigating him. He tried to shut down the investigation entirely. Republican senators eventually went to the White House and told Nixon he had to resign because he couldn't survive an impeachment vote. The votes simply weren't there to protect him anymore. The parallel here is chilling. We're not talking about policy disagreements or controversial statements or mean tweets. We're talking about alleged interference with federal law enforcement to protect financial interests. We're talking about using classification protocols to hide potential crimes from congressional oversight. And the evidence, according to those who've seen it, doesn't come from partisan investigators or political opposition researchers. It comes from career Treasury officials who flagged the patterns months ago and were told to stand down. The pattern across all 3 impeachments is unmistakable. In 2019, the first impeachment centered on alleged abuse of power regarding Ukraine and the attempt to leverage military aid for political investigations. The Senate acquitted along party lines, with every Republican voting no. In 2021, the second impeachment addressed the January 6th events at the Capitol. Again, acquittal, though 7 Republicans voted to convict, including Mitt Romney, Bill Cassidy, and Richard Burr. Now, in 2025, we have something fundamentally different. We have documentation. We have financial records that can't be explained away. We have testimony from career officials who are describing a systematic effort to obstruct federal proceedings. And we have 47 Republicans signing on to impeachment within hours of reviewing the evidence. The pattern is clear. When presidents abuse power in ways that threaten the constitutional order, even their own party eventually reaches a breaking point. Political loyalty alone cannot hold against documented evidence of wrongdoing. Legal and political analysts are calling this a constitutional crisis unfolding in real time. Jonathan Turley, the George Washington University law professor who actually defended Trump during the first impeachment and argued that the Ukraine allegations didn't rise to the level of impeachable offenses, appeared on Fox News Thursday night and made a stunning admission that shocked even the hosts. These allegations, if substantiated, would represent obstruction at a level that cannot be defended on constitutional grounds, Turley said. He emphasized that while presidents have broad authority over the executive branch, that authority does not extend to interfering with ongoing federal investigations for personal financial benefit. The constitutional line is clear, Turley continued. The president cannot use classification authority to hide evidence of crimes from the branch of government charged with oversight. And if the Treasury documents show what congressional sources claim they show, that line has been crossed in a way that demands accountability. Lawrence Tribe, the Harvard constitutional law professor who has been critical of Trump for years, but whose scholarship on constitutional law is widely respected across the political spectrum, told MSNBC that the third impeachment will be judged not by partisan calculations, but by the documentary record. We're past the point of he said, she said, Tribe explained. This is about bank records with timestamps. This is about internal communications with dates and signatures. This is about testimony from career officials who have nothing to gain from lying and everything to lose from telling the truth. The evidence either exists or it doesn't, and everyone who has seen it is saying it exists. Even conservative legal voices are expressing serious concern. Andrew McCarthy, the former federal prosecutor and National Review contributor who has often defended presidential authority and written extensively about executive power, wrote Friday morning that the allegations strike at the core of what impeachment was designed to address. If a president uses the apparatus of government to shield personal financial dealings from federal scrutiny, McCarthy wrote, that is precisely the abuse of power the founders anticipated when they included the impeachment clause in the Constitution. They had seen monarchs abuse their power for personal gain. They designed a system to prevent it, and that system only works if Congress has the courage to use it. Here's what this means in concrete terms. First, the political impact is immediate and devastating. The 212 signatures include 47 Republicans. 47 members of the president's own party have now formally declared that impeachment proceedings should move forward. Before last week, the conventional wisdom in Washington held that Republican loyalty would never break. The base was too strong. The primary threats were too real. That calculation has fundamentally changed. Second, the financial implications are enormous. Markets dropped 3.2% on Friday as news of the resolution spread internationally. The Dow fell over 1,000 points in a single trading session. International observers are questioning the stability of American governance. A Reuters poll conducted Saturday found that 61% of Americans now support at least holding impeachment hearings, up from just 38% 2 weeks ago. That's a 23-point swing in 14 days. Third, the institutional damage is already profound. Career officials at Treasury, Justice, and State are reportedly documenting everything, creating paper trails, and in some cases consulting with personal attorneys about their obligations. The bureaucracy is in self-protection mode. Everyone is preparing for the possibility that they may be called to testify. This puts the White House in an impossible position. On one side, they face pressure to maintain support from a base that remains fiercely loyal and sees any criticism as betrayal. That means defending the president regardless of the evidence, attacking leaks as illegal, and framing the entire situation as a deep state conspiracy orchestrated by enemies who have been plotting since day one. On the other side, they are forced to reckon with documentation that, according to their own committee chairman, represents obstruction at a scale not seen since Nixon. The defense so far has been predictable. Trump posted on Truth Social calling the resolution a witch hunt orchestrated by radical Democrats and weak rhinos who sold out their voters. He claimed the financial records were fabricated by deep state operatives trying to undermine his presidency. He specifically named all 47 Republicans who signed the resolution, calling them traitors who would face primary challenges and political destruction. But here's the problem with that defense, and there's no way around this. The evidence doesn't come from Democrats. The whistleblower is a career Treasury official with 23 years of service who served under 4 presidents of both parties. She has no political axe to grind. The transaction records are bank documents from major financial institutions, not political opposition research. And the testimony that triggered the firestorm came from a deputy secretary who was appointed by this administration. When your defense is attacking the credibility of your own appointees, you've already lost the argument. Legal experts immediately flagged the contradiction. If the documents are fabricated, why did the deputy secretary refuse to answer questions about them, citing national security? If there's nothing to hide, why classify the chain of command? If this is all a hoax, why are 47 Republicans who defended you through everything else suddenly breaking ranks? The defensive posture itself is evidence, according to multiple former prosecutors, of consciousness of guilt. This goes far beyond one president or one controversy. It's about whether the constitutional framework designed 248 years ago still functions when tested by a leader willing to push every boundary. If a president can obstruct federal investigations by classifying the obstruction as a national security matter, then the entire concept of executive accountability collapses. There are no meaningful limits on presidential power if the president alone decides what can be investigated and what must be hidden from Congress. Former Attorney General Eric Holder, appearing on CNN Sunday, put it bluntly. "This isn't about partisan politics," he said. "I've been critical of this administration on policy grounds, but that's not what this is about. This is about whether we remain a nation of laws that apply equally to everyone, including the president. If these allegations are proven and a president faces no consequences, we have effectively created a monarchy. The founders' entire constitutional design was built to prevent exactly this. They separated power specifically so that no one person could place themselves above the law." Senator Mitt Romney, one of the few Republicans who voted to convict in the first impeachment and has been a consistent voice for constitutional principles, issued a statement Sunday afternoon that captured the gravity of the moment. "I have reviewed the classified materials available to senators," Romney wrote. "Every American who values our constitutional republic should be deeply concerned about what they reveal. The facts must be followed wherever they lead, regardless of political consequence. Our oath is to the Constitution, not to any individual." This scenario is causing absolute panic within Republican leadership. Reports from Politico indicate that Senate Minority Leader John Thune held 3 separate emergency conference calls over the weekend trying to determine a unified response. Some senators argued for circling the wagons and attacking the process, claiming the leak itself was the real crime. Others insisted the evidence was too damaging to dismiss and that defending the indefensible would destroy the party for a generation. The party is fracturing in real time, torn between loyalty to a leader and fidelity to the Constitution they swore to uphold. Meanwhile, Trump's core supporters are absolutely furious at the Republicans who signed the resolution. Social media is flooded with calls to primary every lawmaker who broke ranks. They're being labeled traitors, sellouts, and deep state collaborators. To the base, this is the ultimate betrayal. But here's the critical dynamic that's different this time. It's not just Democrats and a handful of Republican dissidents calling for accountability. It's committee chairmen. It's members who defended this president through every prior controversy. When those voices break, the political calculation changes for everyone still sitting on the fence. I need to pause here and make something absolutely clear. What you are watching is not just another political scandal. This is a test of whether the constitutional system still works, whether checks and balances can function when one branch refuses to acknowledge limits. If you understand the stakes here, if you recognize that this moment will define American governance for the next generation, then you need to be part of this conversation. Subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that notification bell Share this video with anyone who cares about constitutional accountability, because the mainstream media is going to cover this as political drama. We are covering this as the constitutional crisis it actually is. The House Judiciary Committee will hold its first public hearing on January 22nd, and when that happens, we will be here breaking down every moment of testimony, every legal argument, every constitutional question that emerges. You need to be here for that. Now let me show you where this is headed. Here's the situation right now. 212 elected officials just put their careers on the line, declaring that a sitting president should face impeachment proceedings. 47 of them are Republicans. The evidence that triggered this includes financial records, whistleblower testimony, and a deputy secretary who refused to answer questions under oath, citing instructions from above. This is no longer partisan theater. It's about whether obstruction of justice can be shielded by claims of national security and whether any president can place himself above the law. The House Judiciary Committee will hold its first public hearing on January 22nd. Multiple administration officials have been subpoenaed to testify, including several who were present when the classification decisions were made. The Treasury Inspector General's report on the transaction patterns is expected before the end of the month. Legal teams are threatening to challenge every subpoena in court. The White House is reportedly considering invoking executive privilege across the board to prevent any testimony. And American families across the country are watching closely to see whether their elected representatives will prioritize constitutional accountability over political loyalty. Here's where things stand right now. The impeachment resolution has been formally introduced. The signatures have been collected. The evidence is being compiled. And for the first time in American history, we may witness an impeachment proceeding where members of the president's own party provide the votes necessary to advance articles of impeachment to the Senate. When Republican committee chairmen openly break with their own party's president over documented evidence, we've entered genuinely unprecedented territory. This isn't just another news cycle that will fade away in a week. This is a constitutional crisis unfolding in real time. What happens next could determine whether the office of the presidency has any meaningful limits at all. The evidence is documented. The resolution has been signed. Now we wait to see if accountability still holds any weight in Washington. The stakes have never been higher. The evidence has never been more documented. And the constitutional crisis has never been more immediate. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay with us as we document every moment of this unprecedented chapter in American history. The Constitution is being tested. The only question now is whether it holds.